and welcome along to Weathering the Storm, the podcast for the Local Area Coordination Network. My name is Nick Sinclair, weathering this particular storm on my own this week, as my co-captain Clinton has been pulled away to deal with some fairly urgent business. So he sends his apologies, and hopefully he'll be back soon with me for the next episode. This week, we have the pleasure of speaking with Jennie Cox and Joe Micheli from City of York Council, who between them oversee and lead local area coordination there. They're chatting about Jennie's paper that she's just written, that you can find now on our website, www.lacnetwork.org. And Jennie's paper is about their initial findings of what's been going on during the first few weeks of lockdown. It's a fascinating read, and it gives a really, really good insight into how their whole system is pulling together there, with people, communities at the heart of all of that, and local area coordination helping to bring all of that together. So I hope you enjoy it. Here it is, Joe and Jennie from City of York Council.
So what have you two been doing then to weather the storm? Apart from working all hours God sends, of course, what have you been doing in your downtime?
Well, I've been in the garden a lot, as you can tell.
Yeah, got a nice time there.
I haven't been out much, as you can tell. The whiteness is even more. It seems even more enhanced in this room. I think it's the lighting.
Yeah, the contrast on my screen is really confusing my computer here. I need to adjust it. Yeah, what have you been up to, Jennie?
Downtime, taking the opportunity to listen to a lot more music, records. May have been doing a bit of online shopping of records as well. My partner keeps saying, "What is this? What have you bought now?" We've got quite a big garden as well, so it's been an opportunity to get out in the garden and sort that out. Neither of us are very experienced gardeners, so there's quite a lot of guesswork going on. Is this a weed? Is this a plant? And yeah, we've been developing our gardening skills.
Brilliant. Well, it's a fascinating thing to be chatting about this new paper that you've written, Jennie, which I've really enjoyed reading a couple of times now. Local area coordination, it's all about people and relationships. I suppose it's your early findings, really, for how local area coordination and the rest of the York system has been responding in these very peculiar times, and responding well and reflective, I think, of the enormous investment that York has made over the years in these relationships. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind just starting off by telling us a little bit about what it was that got you to write the paper in the first place.
Yeah, so over the last few weeks, I've been having lots of conversations with the team, and we've been having to be flexible and adapt as we always do, but in a lot more ways than we usually do. And there were so many stories coming out of these conversations with the team, and so many examples of really rapid, positive sort of system change and communities coming together and self-organising, and this kind of kindness and generosity and compassion. And it just felt like it needed capturing and summarising. I think the paper that I wrote was about 6 pages long, but it could have been 60, because what I've captured in there is just the tip of the iceberg. And it was really, really hard to summarise what are the main things that we're doing, because it just felt like there was so much going on.
I was struck by just how many different parts of the whole system that you've been able to reflect on here, particularly around the connections and relationships that had already been made, and how you've said how those have enabled to link up local and citywide initiatives. That seems so fundamentally important these times, doesn't it? By having local area coordination, have you seen that bring those two kind of worlds together?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in kind of normal times, we act as that sort of connector between the system and communities, that flow of information between the two, and brokering relationship. But those existing relationships and partnerships, they've become even more important, because as information's been changing every day, we've been needing to get that new information out to people so that they can, help themselves, help their families and friends, know what's going on, feel reassured. So yeah, having those existing networks, when I reflect on it, I don't know how we would have got all of that information out there in the way that we have.
And it seems that as well, beyond that it's also the other opportunities that pop up through the relationships with people you're connecting with. And it seemed like in the paper you've been struck by how many people are asking, how can we help and what can we do? And just the level of community response. You cite a really touching story about a moment with the lady on a doorstep and the postman.
Yes, so I've been walking alongside this lady for a long time, for over 2 years now. She was actually one of my first introductions when I started in the role. She's had numerous challenges. She'd been homeless just before I met her, got lots of complicated health conditions, and she's found it really, really difficult at times. We've had some conversations on the phone that have been very emotional, and she has a lot of medication that comes in at different times. The doctors haven't been able to sort of coordinate all the medication into one sort of delivery. And yeah, on one of my trips out doing my many errands that we're all trying to sort of group into 1 or 2 days out a week, I popped over to drop her medication off, and the postman came at the same time. And it was a Friday, so she was telling me she'd been on her balcony and she'd been clapping for carers, and she'd hurt her hands doing that the week before. So she'd got a pan. She'd come up armed with this pan and this wooden spoon, and been banging the pan so hard she'd dented it. And as she was sort of telling us and saying how much she appreciated key workers, the postman was getting tearful. I was getting tearful. It was really emotional, but it really struck home. And I reflected back to her that everybody's got a part to play. And although she feels really helpless, like she's stuck inside, she's having to ask for help. You know, going out on the balcony and doing that every Thursday is her way of showing her appreciation.
Yeah.
And she's found other little ways of doing that since then. So she got a food parcel, and she had a packet of biscuits, and she left that out for the postman the following week. She's doing everything that she can, and I think that's all that each of us can do, isn't it?
It is, but it's we're seeing so many examples of just little acts of interactions like that are changing people's perspectives and making people's day and making people feel good again, just getting through things bit by bit. It's just been so evident that it's the small things in life that make the big difference, isn't it? And I think that's what's so clear about your paper, which talks so clearly about investing in the things that we consider as small things through relationships, but actually those are the things that right now we're all hanging on to. And those are the things that are making the real difference, aren't they? And I think that links a lot with what you always talk about, Joe. It's about people helping people.
I was just, when I was listening to you chatting to Jenny before then, I was reflecting, and this isn't a fluke, what we've achieved in York, because it is a deliberate part of our strategy around how we have invested in prevention and asset-based community development quite deliberately over a period of 3.5 years. We have also quite deliberately linked those very many programs up. For example, whilst we had the community operating model introduced in 2016, reflecting the rethink of social work practice, we were also working with our colleagues in the voluntary and community sector and rethought volunteering in the city to make it more modern. And that was branded as people helping people. But we've also aligned other pieces of work with partners in the city. So we have a really thriving cultural and arts and creative sector, because that's a marvellous asset for the city around how culture and the arts can deliver health and social care outcomes for us and support people to just, live that good life and reach their potential. I agree with what you were saying before. Local area coordination does act as the glue for me that links all of this up, reflecting that the coordinators and the team are deeply embedded, as Jenny said, in those local communities alongside the system, reflecting the place-based nature of the approach. The approach is quite deliberate. We always strive to align the programs and approaches that we invest in and have those informed by very strong principles and values that would mirror the principle and values framework of local area coordination, of radical help, of asset-based community development. So that becomes more of the new normal genuinely in York. Some great examples of that have been how Good Gym is absolutely flying, as we know, in York. They're seen as an integral part of the system, not a nice to have. But the coordinators can tap into the strengths of Good Gym, given they're a running community, to get food parcels delivered to people and meds and prescriptions. And we have another amazing local charity that has floated off from Good Gym in the city called Move the Masses, led by our fantastic Ed Cameron, the previous Good Gym run leader, and they are just absolutely flying. And they responded to, some challenges that our community pharmacies were facing in the city. And as a result of that, people then that were struggling with health conditions weren't getting their meds. But the Move the Masses volunteers have, swung into action. And I was looking at their metrics only yesterday, and they've delivered 500 prescriptions in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So amazing. But local area coordination brings this together. I'll make no bones about it. I've had a long career, nearly 30 years, and I've probably worked in the proverbial alphabet soup of regeneration schemes and community programs. And local area coordination for me has been the best. It joins things up and it ensures that outcomes are delivered for people, streets, neighbourhoods, communities. And it does that through the agency of people acting themselves and building up that strength and resilience and confidence. And it's so built on relationships. And we're lucky to have a great team in York, led by Jennie, and working with yourself as the national network. I often describe it as we're a part of a national family, and that gives us some backing and mandate and permissions to work in the way that we should do, that aren't constrained by the system and service land.
Fabulous. Thank you, Joe. And it's early days and still a major crisis that we're in at the moment. Jennie, you mentioned earlier about the system change silver linings that you're starting to see in your team. You've even got a little jar, I notice, in your paper where your team are sort of folding up bits of paper of reflections, and then you're going to look at them together as a group when you'll come back together.
The thinking behind the keeping a jar, keeping all of these thoughts in a jar, was again going back to that thinking, how are we going to capture all of this great stuff that's happening and make sure we don't lose it? Because we're so busy and we're all working flat out every day, I thought an easy way for us to capture some of these thoughts and ideas is just write them down and keep them physically in a jar, bank them for later. And a lot of as local area coordination is integral to system change, a lot of our system change sort of plans, long-term plans and strategic partnership working, all of that has kind of had to be parked to go back to. And I did have sort of in the beginning of this crisis, I was looking at meetings in my diary that were getting cancelled and thinking, oh, there's this great long-term work that is all going to be paused, and had a little bit of a wobble about it and thought, well, let's just reframe it, because actually this crisis is acting as a real catalyst for other change. So yeah, I've encouraged all of the team to capture that. From my point of view, some of the things I'm seeing is just the enhancement of some of the relationships that we've got, some of the partnerships and the really good relationships that we've built deepening. We have seen that real level of trust. So for example, one of the processes we've built really quickly has been around recognising that there's a need to get phones and internet access to people. So we've worked with the digital inclusion lead and the benefits and partnership team and the income services to use some of the central government hardship fund, put that to one side and be able to provide phones with 3 months data on for people. And we've managed to write a process and an application, develop an application process for that in a matter of days. So we gathered the intelligence from the community and people we were walking alongside, fed those numbers in, and we've now got an application process. We've got the money in place, and we've got the first phones going out this weekend. And things like that would have taken, in the normal world, would have taken months. We would still be going back and forth, tweaking it and looking at the red tape and the bureaucracy. So when we were having conversations with finance and procurement, they were saying, well, you need to see people's ID, you need to see proof of their finances. So we negotiated with them that actually we could just use their council tax support. If they're claiming council tax support, that shows that they've given ID to the council and they're on a low income, and that's all we need to show. So it's that level of trust in each other as partners and colleagues, but also that level of trust in people, in our communities. Yeah. If they're saying they've got a need, why do we in normal times interrogate that need so much? Yeah. So that's a big thing that's come out of this, that I think we need to build that level of trust rather than the burden of proof. I think there's some really fascinating sort of processes that have been developed around food distribution as well, and some of the self-organising community food banks, I think, we can learn an awful lot from, because they've set things up very simply, very quickly, very easily, but it's very, very effective. Whereas there's been quite a lot of, well, we need to build a process map and we need to do this. And I would question that we've shown that we probably don't need a lot of the bureaucracy we build into things in normal times. So I'd really like to see things happening in a much snappier way like that in the future.
One of the things that has struck me is the desire to collaborate with the local area coordinators cross-system during the crisis. In a curious and odd way, the crisis has freed up people's inhibitions from their normal day jobs, not only in the council, but in some of our sort of partners in public services and the voluntary and community sector. So you're really seeing people reach out to us, genuinely wanting to work together and to collaborate. And I often say to Jenny when we have our daily calls, whilst we're in these social isolating times, that that's another ally for us to tick off our list for the future. We're reaching a bit of a tipping point in public services now, where we're seeing more people wanting to work in this way, more person-centred, seeing the person, not the problem. But the golden thread in everything that we do is collaboration and generous leadership running alongside that. We're not about taking the limelight from people's stories or where we've worked with a partner, another public servant, another agency. We're wanting to provide them with a platform to tell their own stories and to demonstrate how they are then working differently, because that should be the new normal. One of my key reflections will be collaboration should be a principle cross-system for change.
I always say that we're only as strong as our partners and partnership working, and that's the nature of the role as an expert generalist. If you don't have those links and those relationships, your role as a single point of contact in the community and in the system breaks down very, very quickly. So yeah, colleagues in mental health services I mentioned in the paper, and I know that they've been feeling a little bit sort of isolated themselves, a little bit kind of siloed, and that's symptomatic of how the system usually functions and some of the relationships that we've been working on. But they felt like that information wasn't getting to them. So we've been able to act as a bridge to pass information on to them, and in thanks for that, they've shared a lot of their resources with us. Sharing that paper with them and showing them has really meant a lot to them. And every time I've shared the list of online resources and helplines that they've shared with us, I've let them know and said, oh yeah, we've shared that with so many people in the community.
It's a fantastic paper. I would encourage everyone listening, particularly everyone in our network, to have a good read of it, and for other people who might be interested in really understanding the true power of local area coordination. Before we finish, really keen to hear, what is the first thing that both of you are going to do once all this is over?
Yeah, I'm going to go and see some live music. I'm going to go to as many gigs as I can, because that's something I've missed so much, and I've had a lot of tickets for gigs that have been cancelled. I've been seeing them being cancelled one by one. So yeah, I'll be going out and watching, even if it's a really rubbish band, anyone that's playing on the day that lockdown ends, I'll be there.
Mine would be a big holiday of family and friends. You know, I'm very fortunate to have a broad group of friends across the globe. So an opportunity to get together with all those friends and family would be the key priority for me. And I'd encourage everybody to be doing that. Let's get out of this. Let's get back together, have a drink, have some fun, share a joke, share some stories and some laughs, because we all need that. Jenny and I were knocking things back and forth yesterday. We had a particularly challenging day, and you need humour, you need a bit of banter. And I forget what Jenny said to me in an email this morning, but it was very good, and I've teed her up, so I hope she remembers it.
Yeah, I think it was something along the lines of we'll leave our capes at home and pull our positive pants up and just get on with it.
Positive pants, that was it. Corporate knickers and positive pants.
Yeah.
Hopefully fresh on every day.
Hopefully.
Oh yeah. No more serious phone calls in my pyjamas.
You can only see your head there.
I am dressed. I haven't got pyjamas on.
I'm dressed too.
Just about.
Just a nice note to end on as well. I mentioned about the phones, and the lady that we were talking about, the lady with the very dented pans, I've one of the phones that I've applied for is for her. She hasn't got any internet connection. She has got a phone, but it intermittently works, and she's been having conversations with her daughter and it's cutting out. So she's got a brand new phone arriving at the weekend that will have 3 months of data on it. And her daughter had the baby on Tuesday. So it's going to enable her to video chat with her daughter and see her new grandson. And I've also ordered her an air horn as well, so she can save her pans. And next week I'll drop this off for her so she can have an air horn on the balcony and film all the clapping on a new phone.
Hey, brilliant. Well, thanks very much for coming on Weathering the Storm and sharing your experiences. And as I say, do dig out that paper. It's on our website now, and we'll be sharing it in the weekly bulletins as well. Joe and Jenny, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all your hard work. Keep it up. And to everyone else listening, we'll keep weathering this storm together. And if you're interested in coming on and sharing your experience of what's been working well where you are, or the challenges where you are, really interested to hear that. And it's not that bad, is it?
No, I've enjoyed it.
No. It's been good.
Love to everybody in the network.
Yeah. Much love to everyone.
Thank you, guys.